Alright. So, back on the plow today. This may very well be the last video on building this thing. Because once I get all the hydraulic system put back on, really all I gotta do is change some wear parts out and fix the hose holder. And by all rights, it should be ready to go because the maul boards are good, the points are usable, the shins are good. I just got to change out the land sides. I'm waiting on one cover board, but the damn coronavirus has got that thing locked up in limbo somewhere. Yeah, really, after I get the hoses and everything put back on, shouldn't be a whole lot left to do to this. Oh, and I got to repack the wheel bearing on the back. So, yeah, I might just go ahead and make this the last video, since this will be the last thing that's actually worth mentioning. So, today, just gonna take both these manifolds apart and put them back together using the best parts from both of them. Mostly, this is the one off of this plow. Most of it's going to be that. I just got to steal a couple pipes out of that, possibly. So they got this, I don't know what they had going on here. They got a short piece in the union, and then a little longer piece in the union, and then a longer piece. And I don't know why they didn't just make one piece. And I want to get rid of that. So, but there's not a piece on this manifold that quite makes that distance up. So we're going to have to do some measuring and see if I could use one of the pieces off of there. And if not, I might have to dig the pipe threader out just to make one pipe, which is going to suck. But it is what it is. So, first things first, going to tear all this apart so that well, I want to clean up all the threads and reseal everything. So, step one. Okay, so I'm going to assemble the front part here first. This is where the accumulator sits. That way I can get this put back on and everything will be positioned to the accumulator and I can just start building back from here. So, took all this apart, cleaned up all the threads on a wire wheel on the bench grinder, and washed it all off in the tank to get any residue or anything from cleaning the threads off. Notice I'm using thread or pipe dope, not fucking thread tape, because thread tape has no business being anywhere near a hydraulic system. This is a lot easier when you're holding the pipe in your hand, but not in a vise. There's this myth going around on the internet, and every time I see somebody say it, I just... There are people that believe that pipe dope, if it gets into a hydraulic system, will ruin a hydraulic pump. False. If thread tape gets into a hydraulic system and ends up hung up in a valve spool, or gets into a hydraulic pump, or ends up hung up in a seal and a piston on a cylinder or something, thread tape will fuck a hydraulic system up. Pipe dope is, for all intents and purposes, a liquid. If this ends up in the hydraulic system, it will just dissolve in the oil and you'll never even know it was there. Thread tape, when it gets soaked in oil, becomes a gooey, mushy ball of shit that does not compress, and it will wipe out the gears in a gear pump. It will seize up a piston pump. It will seize up valve spools. It will seize up pistons and cylinders. Seen it. Dad's whole business is industrial and mobile hydraulics and special machine building. He has farmers and construction guys. He's worked on everything from little Kubota cylinders all the way up to like 100,000-pound excavator cylinders and hydraulic pumps and piston pumps and axial piston motors and all sorts of shit. He's seen it all come in here, and just take my word for it. Thread tape will fuck up a hydraulic system. And if anybody tries to tell you otherwise, they have no clue what they are talking about. And because somebody's going to ask, Dad buys Loctite 565, there's a bunch of different brands and types of thread sealer. You don't necessarily have to buy that. That's just what he uses. One thing I hate about assembling pipe, it never gets tight where you want it to be, and shit always ends up out of line. That's not terrible. And last piece. This makes it easier when you can just hold the pipe in your hand and you just, all you gotta do is run a little bead right there along the edge, and the threads will drag it back the rest of the way when you assemble it. Less is more. Just remember that. Not the bigger the gob, the better the job. Okay, now I guess we can thread the accumulator on there. Where's the hole? This thing is heavy. Come on, find the threads, you bastard. There we go. That tightened up quick. I don't know if you saw any of that because you were looking right at the damn pipe. And where did I put the crescent? And there's that. Well, couldn't quite pull it off. I need a 21.5-inch piece to get where I'm going, and there wasn't anything even close to that, so I had to get the threader out. And one side done. Now we gotta figure out at 21.5. Gonna put me right here. This. And just like that, you made yourself a pipe. Okay, so I got the manifold all put together. And, well, not all the way. I still got to put the valve on it. But that's next. But there's a pressure relief that goes in the end of it because there's enough capacity in that accumulator to trip two bottoms. So if you somehow overpressure the system or trip a third bottom or whatever so that you don't blow shit apart, there's a pressure relief that will, at a certain pressure, just blow hydraulic oil out of the system, which is what this guy is. And before I put it together, I just wanted to tear everything apart and make sure it was clean and nothing was broke and it was free. And all it is there's a little seat down there that this check ball goes up against, and that spring pushes on it, and that plug sets the spring pressure. So everything in here looks good. The spring is still in good shape. It's not really rusty. And I'm just going to clean that up, throw it back together, and put that on. And then the valve and the hoses, and go from there. 1250, I thought.
What did you say it was?
1250. Probably take it to 12. It was 11 to 1250. Plowing clay, probably gonna want to go all the way to 1250, wouldn't you think? It says hard plowing conditions, so I would assume that would qualify as hard plowing conditions. Don't hear no leaks, that's always a good sign. Well, it's all back together. Took the needle valve apart and checked that. The seat's good. The needle's good. For those that have never had one apart, you back this cap off, and there is a rubber seal in here with a steel crush ring. And the seal in these is actually adjustable. If you ever have one of these that starts leaking, just take that nut and give her about a quarter turn, and it'll squeeze the seal tighter. The one that was in here is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it, so I just gave her a little shot of oil for some lubrication and put it back together, and we reused the valve. And when I put it back together, they had it turned up. I turned it backwards. That way water won't sit in here. And hopefully prolong the life of it. Got a new 3000 psi gauge for it. This one's liquid filled, so the other one was just a cheese dick, chintzy, off the shelf 3000 psi gauge. Yeah. I took the I had a straight coming out of this cylinder. I replaced that with a 90 to try to keep everything tucked up next to the frame, because otherwise it was going to be a big old dork of a loop coming straight out and hanging down. And so yeah, that cleaned that up a lot nicer. Got the hose made to charge the system. Obviously you saw the accumulators charged. So, and I got all the fittings up top are still loose, that way we can bleed the air. So, I guess the next step is to bring the old 1950 back up and get her hooked up and put some hydraulic pressure to it and see what happens. Alright, well, the moment of truth. Actually, I'm probably going to set it back down on the ground so I ain't got to reach so high, but it's either going to leak a lot or not. Probably help if I open the valve, huh? Yeah. Yeah, we got oil that one and that one. Son of a bitch. Put it there. Back one's going. So now, just need to watch the gauge till it gets to 1500, which is basically the top number. Actually, I need to get to 1400, so just before that top number. It looks just about perfect. there we go. I guess now the big telltale will be to let it sit overnight and see if any of the cylinders start leaking, and then double check the pressure in the accumulator and see if that leaks down any by tomorrow. I don't see any leaks in the manifold. No leaks there at the accumulator. I think we're good, unless it, like I say, unless it leaks down overnight. It might not have got all the air out of it. It's leaking down a little bit. Might, it's gotta be air working its way to somewhere, because if it was leaking hydraulic oil somewhere, it'd be blatantly obvious, and it's not, because the cylinder, it's not like it could be leaking internal on the cylinders, which is a nice thing about these cylinders. You can tell immediately because there's no rod seal, so it'd just be blowing oil out the rod if the cylinders were leaking, and they're not. So like I say, the only thing that will be a telltale is to let it sit overnight and see what it does in the or see what it looks like in the morning. I think obviously that pulled a lot of oil out of the tractor, so I will. What I'm probably gonna do is I'll let it sit. I'm gonna I'll do it right now. Shut the tractor off. And I'll let it sit for a little bit, top the oil off in the tractor, because you pull a lot out doing that. And try to run it back up to pressure once the tractor's topped off. And we'll catch you when I get that done. Well, we got her. Right up 1,400 pounds on the nose. So, like I say, let's take it and park it for the night, let it sit, see what it does in the morning. Apparently there's more volume in that pipe and them hoses than what you would think, because I put damn near probably a little over 3 gallon oil in the tractor. Holy shit. And I know it wasn't low because I checked it, I don't know, it wasn't too long ago I checked the oil in that thing and it was right where it needed to be, so holy shit. But anyhow, like I say, it's probably going to be the last video I make about this, because unless anybody is just really overly enthusiastic about seeing me change out 3 land sides and putting 2 cover boards on, and basically just giving her a good once over, and probably gonna go ahead and power wash it now that it's covered in oil and get all the moss and shit blown off of it, and remake my hose holder. And by all rights, she should be ready to damn near go to the field after that. Just got to get some decent weather, and hopefully we have our plow day over in the next town where we normally do. Normally that's about the 20th of April-ish, whatever weekend that falls on this year. And the rain date's normally the following weekend if it rains, so But guys have been wanting me to make a video of setting a semi-mount plow up for a tractor. So, and I'm going to set this plow up both the 1955 because it's got a wider tread width than this. So I can't have it set up to run on both. Although it will be close. Right now it's actually, technically I got to sneak the tractor over that way just a hair to get a full width to cut on that first bottom. So there'll be a video about that when it gets that time, but for all intents and purposes we can call this project a wrap. So I guess that does it for this one. We'll catch y'all on the next one.